Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. أما بعد أحبتي في الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أسأل الله كريم رب العرش العظيم أن يتولنا في الدنيا والآخرة. We ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Almighty, accepts our good and forgives our evil, protects us from kulli su' wa makruh, protects us from kufr, shirk, and nifaq. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala heal our hearts from hypocrisy and any weaknesses and doubt and ma'asi, and may Allah make our hearts removed from sinfulness, and may Allah attach us to the remembrance of Him. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma anta afuun tuhibbul afu fa'fu anna. A question was asked. A person, a boy, I guess a man, he reflects back to his past, which causes trouble. Among them were bullies because the evil that they committed in school or outside of it, from which some of these people were bad to him, and others like fighting in class, physical and sexual harassment, shouting, disbelief, and other heinous acts. He was not the victim in all cases, but some mental and evil vulgar language were directed towards him, and he blames himself for not having done much, or at least much was not done. He sort of wished he could have destroyed those evil creatures, but his background did not become strong with training and other requirements for self-defense. In most cases, during those times, he kept distance as much as possible from them. So how to help him in this? He also gets back to his senses sometimes quickly and becomes the old person we knew him. He gets to his normal mode, and he does not want to see any doctor, lest in case he prescribes to him unwanted or unnecessary medications. It would be great to help this brother with a video. Jazakallah khairan. Wa iyyakum. Well, there's many things to unpack. First and foremost, I do want to qualify this. I'm not a doctor, okay? No medical training, no psychological training. I've worked as a social worker. I've worked with troubled youth. I've worked with inmates in the prison. I've worked with the youth of today. And even with that, that is not sufficient training to offer medical advice. But first and foremost, I would say that a person should seeing a therapist. There's no aib in that. There's no harm in seeing a therapist, because we all have sadness and we all struggle from time to time with our well-being and with our mental health, So there's no problem if a person needs to go and receive some assistance in the professional realm, then I advise them to do so. That's first and foremost. Secondly, there are other ways for those who may not need that, who don't suffer to such an extent or severity. They can deal with things, obviously, and even that, the initial case I mentioned, with the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, through ibadah, through worship, through community, through good husn suhbah, righteous companionship, and people who remind you of good, and people who support you. And you need not just people telling you to make salat and stuff, but you do need support. We're human. Allah created us as social creatures. We have Jumu'ah and Jama'ah. Otherwise, we could just pray on our own, and it would be all the same. But no, there's more reward, and there's more health, and more spiritual grounding in everything being in the Jama'ah. There's so much more khair and good than being alone and just worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, unless a person is in that situation. So that's something to give quite a bit of, to give consideration to. And also, it's imperative that this person, because these are ways of dealing with the struggle in general, as we mentioned, also finds some positive, righteous, mubah, permissible habits and activities that they like to do. If they like to go in the sun, if they like to go water skiing or snowboarding or skateboarding, whatever, find some activities that you enjoy that are physical activities as well, because of the tie between the physical, mental, and the spiritual. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Ala wa hiya qalb." Verily, it's the heart. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, "Inna fi jasad mudghah." إذا صلح صلح الجسد كله وإذا فسدت فسد الجسد كله ألا وهي قلب. He sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam said, verily in the body is a morsel of flesh. If it is healthy, the whole body is healthy. If it's sick, the whole body is sick. Verily, it's the heart. So with knowing that, we gain so much positive and insight and to take care of our whole person, you know, your iman first and foremost, you know, taking care of your spiritual and, you know, through prayer and wasta'inu bi sabri wa salat, you know, through patience and prayer, you seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you use that as a means to clean your heart and clean yourself and ground yourself and deal with any mental struggles that you deal with. And also the other means that we mentioned, as far as what happened in the past, there's zero that we can do about it. And again, that is where the counselor or the therapist would come in to help you deal with those issues of the past, to talk about those issues from a professional perspective, because they are trained in that. They are well versed in that. Your local imam, that may or may not be his background. Yes, he could give you some Sharia advice and he can say ignore that, but that is not necessarily going to be the means for your growth and your health. So you do have to, my advice is reconsider worrying about, getting beat up with medications. You can monitor the medications you're taking. If it's not severe, no one's going to force you. You're not being institutionalized. If you have to take some medication because it keeps you balanced, then la bas. You need to do what you have to do, because if you do not, as it seems to be from some of these things that are mentioned, he sort of wish he could have destroyed those evil creatures. That sounds very dangerous. That sounds like the mass school shooters that we have in America. We have a big problem with that. We have angry Chinese stabbing people in China. We have people, all around the world doing bad things because they can't cope and they want to hurt others when they are hurt. So my advice, when you start thinking of destruction and destroying others, you do need to think about help. You need help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first and foremost. Wasta'inu bi sabri wa salat. Seek help through patience and prayer, and you need to see a therapist. You need someone who's a professional in that. And that's my advice again. So you see, I'm emphasizing because I believe that. Somebody else can give you whatever they want as advice. Also, so there's nothing you can do about that past. Again, it's learning how to cope with that, how to move forward with the past. Like I have a very close relative, and we lost a very close relative to a severe type of gun violence, very severe, okay? Plain and simple, was my father. And I have a relative that to this day, 40, 50 years later, or less than that, but probably 40 years, cannot still, that's like heavy on the heart, like crying and still looking for police reports 30 years, 35, 40 years later. So it shows us how important it is that we have to, as human beings, in order to survive, we have to move forward. People go through divorce, people go through death, people go through sickness, people go through illness, they go through this, they go through that. And if they don't have a means for trying to go forward and cope, it can be very destructive towards themselves and towards others. So that's what I can advise as far as helping with regards to that. And as is mentioned, he also gets back to his senses sometimes quickly and becomes the old person we knew him. So I don't know what this new person is, and I don't know what the old person, but it sounds like the old person or the person that the questioner has become accustomed to is more balanced. But the fact that they're always going between poles is something that they need to think about, the mental health aspect, and seeing a professional as well. And that's what I can advise in general. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Almighty, to accept our good and forgive our evil, protect us from kulli su wa makruh, rectify our condition and affairs. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.